With a little bit of paper and a little bit of paint, I've transformed an ugly duckling into a beautiful swan. Hi, I'm Lisa with Lisa Boone Designs, and I want to show you in this video how I took a brownie frowny little table that had scratches and stains and was wiggly into a beautiful statement piece.
There's nothing like an amazing decoupage paper to really transform a piece of furniture or small home decor item. In this case, I took the newly released vintage wallpaper decoupage paper to transform this table. This table had definitely seen better days. It had multiple scratches, some staining, and it even had some gummy residue on the bottom shelf. I pulled out my orbital sander and I decided to sand the top down completely just to show that you can decoupage directly onto wood. You do not have to paint it before decoupaging. On the bottom shelf, I just removed the residue that was on there, the stickiness, and I decided to paint that in DIY Paints crinoline. So here she is, all sanded down, nice and smooth, and on the bottom, I just sanded off just that part that needed to come off.
This project is a wonderful thing that you can incorporate into your home. Whether you are boho, whether you are farmhouse, modern, minimalist, I think that this table can work in any one of those styles. Cottagecore is a huge thing right now. People are getting away from the minimalist and the white farmhouse starch aesthetic, and I love it. I love the floral, I love the mix of patterns and the green. It's so pretty, and I promise that you can do it too. And then last night, one of my friends on Facebook posted on Marketplace this table. And when I saw the table and the spindly legs, it's an antique, they said. I was like, what size is that table? They said 20 by 20. I'm like, come on, and it's calling for decoupage. So I'm gonna take my brush here. I just put a little bit of paint at a time. When I paint on raw wood, I like to douse it with my fine mist sprayer. It helps the I probably shouldn't have done that with my papers. It helps the paint to just kind of absorb.
I'm using a synthetic brush and I am applying DIY Paints crinoline to the bottom and to the sides of that bottom shelf.
You can purchase any of the products that I used today on my website, lisaboondesigns.com. Cottagecore is like the new craze, right? But have you heard of Grand Millennial? That's a new design concept that's coming back. It's an old design that's coming back. And the IOD sisters, Iron Orchid Design, they taught all of us here recently about Grand Millennial, and they did a couple of videos. And it's where the Waverly fabrics have come back to life, and color and multiple patterns, right? Do you remember like the 80s when that, I don't know if you're old enough or if you remember, if you know your grandmother's house, how we had florals and stripes and all kinds of patterns. Well, I thought about doing stripes down here on the bottom, but then because this reminds me of Waverly print. It does. I love it. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. You can comment below and I will answer. So this is one that we had in the last release and I've yet to use it. I loved it immediately because I love toile. And so instead of doing the stripes, I'm gonna do that on the bottom, and we're gonna feed off of the Cottagecore trend. And so what I did was I chose my colors based off of this pattern, the crinoline. I did that because it's a light background and these papers are light and I want them to pop, but I'm also going to do the crinoline on the edges. I'm gonna be using gypsy green because it literally matches the color exactly, one of the greens. And it's kind of cottagecore, but it could really go grand millennial because I'm gonna do the legs in the green. Now here's one, if you wanted to take this one step further and bypass cottagecore, go straight to grand millennial, you could actually paint the edges in gold. Gold's coming back. I mean, you could do it in copper, I guess, but if you did this in gold, that would be like really grand millennial. You need to look up the IOD sisters and what they did. Okay, I wanted this, the biggest section of blooms to be on the table. So what I'm doing is I'm lining it up and I want to make sure I'm going a little bit outside of my rim because the paper kind of stretches and moves sometimes and I want to make sure that I have it on here really, really well.
Decoupage doesn't have to be hard. Take your brush, I prefer a synthetic brush, and apply your decoupage medium very smoothly. I prefer to use DIY Paints Liquid Patina. I prefer that over most mediums, but I also like to use DIY Paints Big Top. They both work really great. The key to a smooth finish, if that's what you're after, is taking some saran wrap and bunching it up into a ball and ironing out with your hand while it's still wet after you've just applied it and getting it nice and smooth. The saran wrap helps you to not rip the paper because our fingertips will cause friction and can rip the wet paper. Then once I have the first section down, I flip over my paper and I apply it in sections. And it makes it more manageable. So you can do this. This is so simple. Just make sure that you get an even coating on your piece so that you'll have good adhesion. Once I've applied the paper, I just go over it with the saran wrap all over, and then you walk away. You have to let it dry. Just let it go and come back after it's dried, and guaranteed 99.9% of the time, all of your wrinkles will smooth out.
Go ahead and follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest under my business name, Lisa Boone Designs. You can also visit my website, lisaboondesigns.com. All right, so let me tilt this. So you're probably, if you're new to decoupage, wondering, well, what is she gonna do with all that extra paper that's sitting there? We're gonna let that dry, we don't touch it. I'm gonna leave this paper. Now, if you want to cut your paper out before and put it perfectly, you can do that. I don't do that. I've got this pattern, and this is my front, so this is gonna be my front to back. So I'm lining this up in the center, and so obviously the paper's too wide, but I'm going to kind of work with it.
Once I've dry fitted my piece, especially in this situation where it's a strange shape and it's kind of cumbersome, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start making it more manageable by tearing off the pieces that I don't want. And I do that with a wet artist brush. I just dip it in water and create a line, and then I tear the paper exactly where I want it torn, leaving behind what I want on the piece. But I always overlap a little bit in case the paper shrinks or in case it shifts a little bit. I buy myself some wiggle room. Now I save all of my scraps because whenever I'm decoupaging something smaller, I will be able to use those small pieces in a really cool and interesting way on another project. And that's really how you get the big bang for your buck. These decoupage papers are 20 by 30, 18-pound tissue papers, and I sell them for $6 plus shipping and tax. So you can really use a lot of different papers in multiple ways. In the same method that I applied the paper on top, I'm applying it on the bottom. I take it one section at a time, and I start at the very end, and then I work my medium. Of course, in this case, I'm using DIY Paints Liquid Patina. I'm using an artist brush, and I'm just applying a smooth coat, a generous coat, and then I lay my paper down, I smooth it out, and then I continue on until I finish decoupaging the entire piece. I always make sure that I do a good coat too around the edges, because you don't want your paper to peel up. There are different ways of doing decoupage. You can do the iron-on method, you can do the wet method. Do the method that works best for you. But I really think that the wet method is an easy way. I know a lot of people struggle with it because of the wrinkles, but sometimes you just have to embrace the wrinkles. I suggest trying these different techniques on small pieces of wood and find the method that works best for you. I have several tutorials on decoupage, so be sure to check out more of my videos right here on YouTube. You see how the wrinkles are ironing out on their own. They're stretching out. So I had a lot of wrinkles on here. Let me see if I can tilt it a little bit better. I don't know if you can see, but it's looking so good. DIY Paint has some really pretty green colors. In this case, I'm using Gypsy Green. You also could have used Fancy Farm Girl or Aviary for this look. I'm using the DIY Paints Insider brush because I find that it's very helpful with the tapered edge to paint the top of the spindle and not have to tape off the bottom of that table shelf. And also on next to that bottom shelf, I'm able to get in really close, and it also helps to paint in all of the spindles. Then I take an artist brush and I go back to the top shelf and I line it with crinoline. And I really like the way that all just came together. See right here, this is the extra paper. It's flapping. I'm just gonna take my sanding sponge and I'm gonna go like this. A lot of times I use one of these big blades, and once it's dry, I will go along the edge and I will cut that part out because I can't really reach it and it's hard, and so it makes it really easy to cut out. I have been enjoying the process of going cottagecore. This little table, I transformed it into something so lovely, so beautiful that can go in any home. It really can. If you're afraid of color, try using it in a small project like this table. No matter the method that you choose to decoupage your paper onto your project, the moment that you apply sealer, you are going to wet the paper and then cause wrinkles. I don't want you to worry about your project. This is natural. This is what happens when you wet paper. And so just take your top coat, apply even coats all throughout, let it dry, and then apply a second coat, especially on tables. You probably want to do 2 to 3 coats. In this case, I use DIY Paint's Big Top. It is a very durable top coat. I used 2 coats, and then I also sealed it with DIY clear wax as well, and then I buffed it. And that gives you a very strong and durable finish for a tabletop. DIY Big Top is a great top coat, and when you combine it with wax, you almost get a waterproof product. I ended up doing 2 coats of DIY Big Top on top of this paper, and then I did 2 coats of DIY clear wax and I buffed it. I love the way that it looks. I went ahead and I applied DIY clear wax on the legs as well to seal it.
If you have any questions about DIY paint, about decoupage, about the Roycycled papers that I used today, don't hesitate to ask me. Thank you so much for watching this video. It really helps me by you liking, taking the time to subscribe. I so appreciate it. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified the next time that I upload a video. Thank you so much for all of your support. I hope you have an incredibly blessed day.